Okay, so let's get into this. Have you ever looked at, say, a university degree and just wondered what really signals quality here? Especially, when you're comparing degrees from different countries.
Right. It's a tough question.
In today's world, it feels more connected than ever, and understanding what makes a program genuinely excellent is, well, it's vital. Whether you're a student picking a major, or maybe a parent helping out, or even a university leader trying to get the best people.
Absolutely.
So today, we're diving deep into higher education accreditation, which is basically the system that stamps a university program with a seal of approval.
Yeah, like a quality mark.
Kind of like a passport for
Yeah.
quality,
Yeah.
yeah. Showing programs meet certain standards, helps with international recognition, that sort of thing.
And what's really fascinating, I think, is that for the institutions themselves, and even for, national education strategies, dealing with these accrediting bodies,
Yeah.
it's way more than just ticking a box.
Oh, definitely. It's a critical strategic choice.
Yeah.
It really impacts their global standing and, crucially, their graduates' futures.
Right.
You pick the right accreditations, you're basically handing your students a much more valuable global passport.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to get beyond just the surface level descriptions. We want to offer some deep strategic insights for you, the listener,
Yeah.
especially if you're interested in global education standards, student mobility, that kind of thing.
Mm.
We're going to compare three really important accreditation organizations.
Mm-hmm.
The ASEAN University Network Quality Assurance, that's AUN-QA,
Okay.
the Thailand Accreditation Board for Engineering Education, or TABEE,
Right, TABEE.
and the big global one, ABET. And all this comes straight from the sources we've pulled together for this deep dive.
Good.
So let's start our journey then with AUN-QA. Now, this is a really ambitious initiative, I'd say, deeply connected to ASEAN, the Association of Southeast Asian Nations.
Mm-hmm.
It actually started as the ASEAN University Network, the AUN, way back in 1995.
The AUN-QA network itself was kind of discussed a few years later, 98, and it led to the Bangkok Accord in 2000.
Okay, so it has some history.
It does. And their mission is pretty clear. Promote quality assurance, raise higher ed standards, and basically collaborate for the good of the whole ASEAN community.
So it's positioning itself as a key player in building this harmonized, Asian higher education area.
Exactly. Architect is a good word for it.
And it's remarkable how broad their approach is. That really sets them apart, I think. AUN-QA assesses at 3 different levels.
Right, not just one.
Yeah. The most common is the program level. That looks at the quality of input, process, and output for a specific degree program.
Okay.
But then they also do an institutional level evaluation. That's a full deep dive into the whole university, its strategy, systems, how it functions in terms of quality assurance.
Wow, comprehensive.
And there's even a third level. They look at the institution's internal quality assurance system, the IQA, basically how the university manages its own quality internally. And you touched on its reach. It's truly pan-disciplinary. They'll accredit, everything from agricultural engineering to graphic design to economics. It's quite a range.
That's a great point. How do they maintain rigor across such different fields?
Well, that speaks to their model.
Yeah.
Right? It's really built on something called outcome-based education, or OBE.
Okay, OBE. We hear that a lot.
Yeah. It means they focus on what students can actually do when they graduate, not just, what courses they sat through.
Right, the outcomes.
Exactly. And they really emphasize continuous improvement. You often see that Plan, Do, Check, Act cycle, the PDCA model, in their framework.
Uh-huh.
And a key part is how stakeholder-centric it is. Needs from industry, government, society. Those actually feed into the university's vision and what they call expected learning outcomes, or ELOs.
ELOs, okay.
And those ELOs then have to link up with established learning frameworks, like Bloom's taxonomy.
Got it.
The criteria used to be 11, I think. Now it's streamlined to 8. But they consistently look at those ELOs, program structure, teaching methods, learning assessment, and crucially, quality enhancement.
And that international link.
Yes, important point. It's explicitly aligned with European standards and guidelines for quality assurance, the ESG. That gives it international credibility.
So the strategic value, thinking regionally within ASEAN, it seems pretty significant because of this whole picture.
Oh, absolutely. For institutions, it's powerful external validation, boosts their reputation, but it's also a really valuable self-assessment exercise for improvement.
Right.
Countries like Vietnam see it as crucial for their international standing. For students, it gives them a real edge in the regional job market. Think of it as like a regional currency for their degree.
Makes sense.
It makes student mobility, credit transfer between AUN universities way easier.
And for employers, society.
Well, it's a reliable benchmark for hiring quality people. And it helps prospective students and their families make much more informed choices. It really builds trust across the region.
Okay, so AUN-QA is building that regional passport. Now let's shift focus to Thailand, where TABEE is kind of creating its own national passport, but definitely looking outwards, globally.
Yeah, exactly.
And just to be clear, we're talking specifically about the Thailand Accreditation Board for Engineering Education, not any other similar sounding name.
Like good clarification. TABEE. Its origin is with the Council of Engineers, Thailand Co-ET. That gives it a very clear national mandate. Serve Thai society, Thai industry. But here's the really interesting part, I think. KB's ultimate goal, its big ambition, is to become a full signatory of the Washington Accord.
The Washington Accord. Okay, unpack that a little.
Sure. If you haven't heard of it, the Washington Accord is basically this international agreement between major countries with strong engineering sectors. Think U.S., Australia, Japan, UK, Canada, many others. They agree to recognize each other's accredited engineering degrees as substantially equivalent, basically as equally rigorous.
Okay. Mutual recognition.
Exactly. And this ambition, wanting to elevate Thai engineering education to that global standard, it profoundly shapes TABEE's whole identity, its procedures, everything. It's a national body purpose built to be a bridge to global recognition.
And you can really see that bridge building in their accreditation model, can't you?
Clearly.
It's very much outcome-based, and it seems to directly mirror ABET and the Washington Accord requirements.
Unashamedly so, yes. They look at criteria like student performance, the program's educational objectives, PEOs, and critically, the program outcomes, or POs.
Those specific skills students should have.
Precisely. Things like problem analysis, design skills, ethics, communication, lifelong learning. These are pretty much identical to the graduate attributes required by the Washington Accord. And they also cover continuous improvement, curriculum, faculty quality, facilities, institutional support, the whole package.
And this mirroring isn't accidental.
Not at all. It's a deliberate, very strategic move. The goal is to demonstrate substantial equivalency, to prove to the Washington Accord members that a TABEE-accredited Thai engineering degree is just as good as one from, say, the U.S. or Australia.
So the strategic value for Thai institutions, it's kind of twofold.
Exactly. A powerful dual benefit. First, it's essential for national recognition. Graduates need it for professional engineering licensure within Thailand. That's the baseline.
Okay, the domestic need.
Right.
Fair.
But maybe even more significantly, it's the primary pathway for Thai engineering programs to get that global stamp of approval.
Right.
Once TABEE becomes a full Washington Accord signatory, and they're currently a provisional member, working towards it, it just opens up huge doors.
Like what?
Enhanced international job prospects for graduates, much easier entry into postgraduate studies abroad. And the ability to seek professional registration as an engineer in other signatory countries.
So it really transforms a national qualification
into a globally recognized credential.
Yeah. Okay. So if AUN-QA is about regional harmony and TABEE is that national bridge aiming for global standards, who's setting those global standards, particularly in STEM?
Well, that brings us to ABET.
ABET. Yeah, this feels like the big one, the titan on the world stage for quality assurance.
That's a good way to put it. It's pretty much the undisputed global leader in accrediting programs in applied and natural science, computing, engineering, and engineering technology, STEM, basically.
And it's been around a while.
Oh, yes. Founded back in 1932. Started as the Engineers Council for Professional Development, ECPD.
Okay.
Renamed ABET, the Accreditation Board for Engineering and Technology, in 1980. And then in 2005, they just simplified it to ABET, Inc., reflecting that broader scope beyond just engineering.
And the global reach today.
Immense. We're talking over 4,600 accredited programs.
Fire.
At more than 900 institutions.
Yeah.
Across 42 countries.
Wow.
It really is the gold standard for a STEM education passport.
So what makes the ABET model so credible? What's behind that prestige?
Well, a few things. Firstly, it's entirely voluntary. Institutions choose to seek ABET accreditation.
Okay.
And its rigor comes from this massive peer review process. They have over 2,200 volunteer experts.
1,200.
Yeah, these are practicing professionals from industry and government, senior academics. They conduct the evaluations. This ensures the criteria stay grounded in, real-world relevance.
Makes sense. Keeps it current.
Exactly. And its structure is quite clever, too. It has 4 specialized commissions, one for engineering, EAC, one for engineering technology, ETAC, one for computing, SCAC,
Right.
and one for applied and natural science, ANSC.
So deep expertise in each area.
Right. And it's also a federation. It's made up of 34 professional member societies like, ASME for mechanical engineers, IE for electrical and electronics engineers.
So the professions themselves are involved?
Directly. It links the accreditation criteria straight back to the needs and standards of those professions.
Now, I remember reading about something called EC 2000, Engineering Criteria 2000. That sounded like a big shift for ABET.
Huge. EC 2000 was genuinely revolutionary back around the turn of the millennium. It fundamentally shifted the focus of accreditation.
How so?
It moved away from primarily looking at inputs like how many hours of calculus did students get, what textbooks were used.
The traditional way, maybe.
Kind of, yeah. And shifted focus sharply onto outputs or outcomes, meaning what can graduates actually do? What skills and knowledge do they possess and can they apply?
So very much in line with that outcome-based education idea we discussed.
Absolutely. ABET was a real pioneer in implementing it rigorously at scale. So if you look at the current general criteria for, say, the Engineering Accreditation Commission, EAC, some are really key.
Right.
Well, Criterion 3, student outcomes. This mandates 7 essential outcomes that graduates must be able to demonstrate. Things like solving complex engineering problems, designing solutions, communicating effectively, understanding ethical responsibilities, working in teams, conducting experiments, and importantly, recognizing the need for lifelong learning.
Okay, those sound practical.
Very. Then there's Criterion 4, continuous improvement. Programs don't just state outcomes. They must have processes to regularly assess how well students are achieving them, and then use that data to systematically improve the program.
Closing the loop.
Exactly. And Criterion 5, curriculum. This sets expectations, like needing a minimum number of credits in math and basic sciences, a minimum in engineering topics, and always culminating in a major engineering design experience.
The capstone project.
Usually, yeah. One that tackles real-world problems with realistic constraints, economic, environmental, ethical, etc. It ties it all together.
And this model, these criteria, that connects directly to the Washington Accord.
Absolutely critical link. ABET was a founding member of the Washington Accord back in 1989.
Okay, so they were there from the start.
Yes. And the Accord basically adopted the principles of ABET's outcome-based approach as the basis for recognizing substantial equivalency among signatory nations.
So ABET accreditation equals Washington Accord recognition.
Pretty much. For engineering programs in signatory countries. An ABET-accredited engineering degree from the U.S., for example, is automatically recognized by the 24 other signatory nations.
That's huge for portability.
Unparalleled international portability. It significantly boosts job opportunities globally, makes pursuing graduate studies abroad much smoother, and really simplifies getting professional licensure in other major economies. It truly is the global gold standard passport for engineers.
Okay. Wow. So we've laid out AUN-QA, TABEE, and ABET individually, but the real picture, I think, starts to emerge when you put them side by side. I mean, you start seeing the overlaps, but also some really stark contrasts, right? Even though they're all aiming for quality assurance.
Absolutely. When you compare them directly, you see this fascinating landscape. You've got regional approaches, national strategies, and this global standard setter.
So how would you break down the core differences, thinking about their, their fundamental purpose?
Okay, well, if you look at their governance and intent, AUN-QA is really a collaborative regional network. It's driven by this geopolitical and educational vision for ASEAN integration. It's about harmonizing quality for the benefit of the whole region.
Right, that collaborative aspect.
Then you have TABEE. That's a national professional board born from Thailand's Council of Engineers. Its primary job is serving Thai national needs, but it does that by strategically adopting global standards, namely the Washington Accord framework.
A national bridge.
Exactly. And then ABET. That's different again. It's a global federation of professional societies. Its mission is upholding and advancing professional standards in STEM fields worldwide using this rigorous expert peer review system. It sets the benchmark.
And those differences really show up in their scope and focus, too.
Clearly. Geographically. AUN-QA is regional, focused on ASEAN. TABEE is national, just Thailand. ABET is global, U.S. rooted, but accrediting in 42 countries.
Right. And discipline-wise?
AUN-QA is broad. Pan-disciplinary covers almost any field. TABEE is narrow, engineering only. ABET is specialized, but broader than TABEE, covering the key STEM fields. Applied natural science, computing, engineering, and engineering tech.
Okay. And what about the level of assessment?
That's another interesting distinction. AUN-QA is unique because it assesses at both the program and the institutional level. TABEE and ABET focus primarily on program-level accreditation.
And that Washington Accord status is a big differentiator, too.
Crucial. AUN-QA isn't the signatory. TABEE is a provisional signatory, actively aiming for full membership. ABET is a founding signatory, one of the original architects.
Yet, despite all those differences, you mentioned they all kind of meet around outcome-based education.
Yes, philosophically, there's a convergence there. All three are fundamentally about defining what learners need to be able to do. And all three mandate continuous improvement. That's common ground.
But how they do OBE varies.
It does diverge in implementation. ABET really pioneered the modern, rigorous OBE model for accreditation. The Washington Accord then essentially adopted that model. And TABEE, strategically, emulated it directly to gain entry.
Okay.
AUN-QA is also OBE-focused, but its framework feels a bit more blended.
Yeah.
It draws on international best practices, but explicitly mentions alignment with European models like the ESG.
So maybe more flexible?
Potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
And that leads to differences in criteria specificity. ABET and TABEE, being focused on engineering, and STEM for ABET, have more standardized, arguably more prescriptive criteria, like specific student outcomes lists, minimum credit hour requirements.
Right.
AUN-QA's framework has to be more generalized and flexible because it needs to apply across everything from literature to engineering.
Okay, so let's bring back that passport analogy for international recognition and mobility. How do they stack up?
A good way to frame it. AUN-QA provides strong regional currency. It's a passport that gives you really smooth travel within the ASEAN bloc for student exchange, credit transfer, jobs within the region.
Okay, the ASEAN passport.
TABEE offers national recognition with a pathway to global status. Its international value is still largely aspirational right now because it hinges on getting that full Washington Accord membership. So it's like having a national passport, but with a very promising visa application pending for global access.
Makes sense. And ABET.
ABET is the global gold standard passport, at least in STEM fields. It provides the highest degree of international portability for jobs, further studies, professional licensure across dozens of major economies, thanks to its founding role in the Washington Accord. It's the closest thing to a universal education passport in its domain.
Oh, okay. That comparison really clarifies things. So what does all this mean for you listening? If you're thinking about higher ed, maybe choosing a program, or if you're leading an institution.
Yeah, the big so what.
Right. The decision about which accreditation or which accredited program isn't one size fits all, is it?
Absolutely not. It has to be a strategic decision.
So institutions really need to ask themselves some hard questions, I guess.
Definitely. Like, what's our primary strategic objective here? Are we mainly focused on strengthening regional partnerships within ASEAN? Is the top priority ensuring national licensure for our graduates like engineers in Thailand? Or are we aiming for that elite global status, competing on the world stage?
And who are the target students?
Crucial question. What are their career aspirations? Are they likely to stay within the ASEAN region, or are they dreaming of global careers in London or Silicon Valley or Sydney?
Right. And the discipline matters hugely, too.
Of course. Does the institution need broad, pan-disciplinary accreditation like AUN-QA offers? Or is it specifically about specialized fields like engineering or computing, where TABEE or ABET might be more relevant?
And the practical side, resources.
Yeah, can't ignore that. Accreditation is resource-intensive. Preparing the self-study reports, hosting the visit teams, it takes significant time, effort, and money. Especially pursuing multiple accreditations. Institutions need to realistically assess their capacity.
That brings up an interesting point. Pursuing multiple accreditations, is that common?
Increasingly so. We're seeing a move towards what you might call building an accreditation portfolio.
A portfolio?
Yeah. Institutions realize they don't necessarily have to choose just one. They can pursue multiple accreditations that are complementary, that serve different strategic goals.
Okay, can you give an example?
Sure. Look at the University of the Philippines, Los Baños. They have AUN-QA certification for a bunch of programs that gives them regional strength and recognition. But at the same time, their engineering programs were also pursuing certification that's analogous to the Washington Accord standards, aiming for that global reach.
Ah, so they're covering both bases.
Exactly. Or Ton Duc Thang University in Vietnam, they've got AUN-QA across a really wide range of programs, engineering, sciences, accounting, even languages. That builds broad regional credibility.
Okay.
And in Thailand, you could easily see an institution pursuing TABEE for all its engineering programs that covers the essential national licensure requirement.
Right, the baseline.
But then they might invest extra resources to seek direct ABET accreditation for, say, one or two flagship international programs like chemical engineering at Narizwin University.
Why would they do both TABEE and ABET?
Well, TABEE gives them the national recognition needed for all graduates to practice in Thailand and aligns them with the Washington Accord pathway. Direct ABET accreditation for a specific program gives that program instant, top-tier global recognition right now, beyond the potential future recognition via TABEE and the Accord. It signals elite status for that particular program.
So it's like layering the benefits.
Precisely. You create this powerful combination. AUN-QA, maybe for regional breadth across the university, TABEE for essential national professional alignment in engineering, and maybe ABET for select programs targeting elite global STEM leadership. It's like getting multiple specialized stamps in your institution's educational passport.
That's a really interesting strategic perspective. It really points towards the future of transnational quality assurance, doesn't it?
I think so. Some trends seem clear. Outcome-based education is pretty much the global norm now. That's not going away.
Right.
And we should probably expect more interaction, maybe sometimes competitive, sometimes collaborative, between these different accrediting bodies and frameworks.
And that rise of national bodies like TABEE, designed specifically to be compatible with global standards like the Washington Accord, that seems significant too.
Very. It allows countries to maintain national ownership and tailor standards slightly to local needs, while still ensuring their graduates have globally compatible qualifications. It's a smart way to balance national identity with international mobility.
So for you, the listener, especially if you're involved in university leadership, it sounds like strategically managing a diverse portfolio of these quality assurance credentials is going to be increasingly important.
I think that's right. It's less about just meeting one standard and more about navigating this complex global landscape of quality assurance to best serve your students and your institution's mission.
Okay, so let's try to quickly summarize the core identities here.
Sure, if I had to boil it down. AUN-QA is the regional harmonizer. Think geopolitical and educational vision for ASEAN, collaborative, pan-disciplinary.
Got it. Regional harmonizer.
TABEE is the national bridge to global standards. It serves specific Thai needs by strategically adopting international frameworks, aiming for that Washington Accord membership.
National bridge, okay.
And ABET is the global professional standard setter. It establishes the worldwide benchmark in STEM education, leads the Washington Accord, driven by professional societies.
Global standard setter, great summary.
Thanks.
And I guess the essential takeaway, really, is that there's no single best accreditation here.
Nope. It's always context dependent.
It's a deliberate strategic decision for any institution. Ultimately, your choice of accreditation, or the accredited program you choose as a student, is a direct choice about the geographic scope of that passport you want.
Well said.
So as you reflect on this deep dive, just consider how these different frameworks, AUN-QA, TABEE, ABET, even though they're diverse, they seem to be converging in some ways. They're building trust, they're enabling global mobility, fostering this culture of continuous improvement, all in this shared enterprise of higher education.
Yeah.
And maybe a final thought to leave you with, what other industries, beyond education might benefit from some kind of global passport system for quality and recognition, something to think about?